And so to open up the second half of this conversation, Matt, can you please define for us the term automation framework? How should we think about it, and what does it consist of?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of comes back to another definition question. I think it depends who you talk to. The biggest problems facing automation, some folks are going to say it's software limitations. Other people will say that the right hardware doesn't exist. And of course, others still will say that, robots can't possibly execute my assay. It's far too complex. And in reality, it's actually all of these things. So when talking about a framework for automation, I use it in kind of like a butchered software traditional definition of like it's all the things that we need, all the components to address the challenges inherent to each of those areas to accomplish the goal, like TJ mentioned, which is to enable science and drug production. Our automation engineers have the pleasure of addressing not only each of the areas individually, but pulling them all together for a more coherent solution. So, I think the best way to approach it really depends on your group. Just like no two robotic systems are the same, neither are no two automation teams. And, you really have to play to your team's strength. And I think that's where experience like TJ and, more senior folks in the automation industry have value, is like leading into those strengths and finding out how to complement them. I've seen, very engineer heavy teams, very software programming heavy teams. So really finding the right complement to be able to get the solution together. At the very early days of Beam, we focused on a large degree of data connectivity right out of the gate. So we chose very extensible options, very flexible to allow some degree of future proofing, which is chaotic in a startup environment. But at a high level, what it consists of is kind of like a layer. If you look at it from a layer standpoint, at the base you have all of the individual devices that you're talking about, like TJ said, like some of the more small volume dispensers, the big bulky stuff, the readers and whatnot. But then you also have a schedule layer. So how do you get your samples to the right device at the right time and executing the right protocol that you want it to do? And then, as I kind of mentioned before, there's actually a layer that sits above all that. So what's kind of becoming a new development in automation is an orchestration layer. So those things that allow a more holistic view of all of your equipment and the lab, and which allows you to do the really fun and sometimes crazy stuff like hanging rover tracks from your ceiling above multi-million-dollar systems. But really, the automation framework requires all of those layers to be in sync and to harmonize. And all of that is technically just the beginning. We have an amazing computational sciences team that we work with to harmonize and push our data to and from our LIMS systems, via AWS. And a tremendous amount of work goes into making it all accessible. You can have the best pipeline in the world, but if it's intimidating for scientists to use, it's not going to get much use. So things like the digital twin and the various other UI work. So all of that work is what's kind of underneath the hood in what I essentially refer to as an automation framework. And most of the time, the users just see a start button. They don't see a lot of what our team calls computer magic that goes on behind the scenes. So it's always fun to shed some light and see all the switches that get flipped to make everything actually connect and work.
I was just going to add, you're talking about at a particular time point, right? And that's certainly one of the things that we've dramatically seen over our careers, right? How markedly automation has changed, and particularly the infrastructure behind it. And so I think that's what's exciting about this. As much as we try to define some of these terms now, in a few years and even longer, we're going to continue to push this further. And so I think that's what's been really exciting to think about, what we had and what was going forward to address these specific questions we were outlining.